Alright, good morning everybody, and welcome back to True Crime Loser. I hope you're doing well. So folks, today we're going to talk about the YNW Melly murder trial. Things got very interesting yesterday. At this point, both the prosecution and the defense have rested their case. It took the prosecution 2 weeks to present their case. It took the defense 10 minutes to present theirs. They called one witness. The old one witness defense. The one witness that they called was Melly's friend, who basically testified to be an alibi for Melly, essentially saying all of the stuff the prosecution has been going on and on about for the past 2 weeks could not have happened because Melly was with me. And also, not only was Melly with me, he lost his phone. And anyway, the phone that he lost wasn't even really his phone. It was a group phone. Everybody shared it. God only knows who was using that phone and where it is, but it definitely wasn't Melly because he lost his phone that night. But it wasn't really his phone, but he did lose it. And so now, court is not in session today. Closing arguments start tomorrow, July 20th, on Thursday in the morning. You got to think closing arguments will run all morning and probably into the afternoon. So unless something crazy happens, the jury will be handed over the case tomorrow, late afternoon, early evening. At the very earliest, there'll be a verdict tomorrow night, but probably Friday, and then at the latest next week sometime. If convicted, YNW Melly faces the death penalty. All right, so I'm going to go over a little bit of a timeline up to the fateful night when Melly's two friends, best friends from childhood, were murdered. And then we're going to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the prosecution's case and the strengths and weaknesses from the defense's case. And then everybody will be all learned up so you can watch the closing arguments tomorrow, and then we will all get to see how this thing plays out. It's pretty intense. Okay, so early teenagers, YNW Melly and his buddies start a little rap group, and it's called YNW, right? So they all have YNW and then their rap name. So it's YNW Melly, YNW Sack Chaser, YNW Juvie, and YNW Bortland. And it's very common to do that, and it's a smart business move because if one of the rappers in the groups gets some success and you can get some name recognition for YNW, which happened, then it brings everybody else in the group up with it. Because, like in this example, YNW Melly, his song started going berserko, 200 million views, 500 million views. So everybody starts recognizing YNW, and then the other person in the group can post their music video that's YNW Bortland, and people, oh, I recognize that because of the hit song YNW. I know that. Click on that. So it's very common to do that. It's done all the time. So they're this little rap group. They're all young, YNW, and then their name. Okay? In October 2015, when Melly, who's on trial for murder, facing the death penalty, when he was 16 years old in 2015, drove by a high school and shot out at 3 people. Pretty much deranged lunatic type behavior, right? Well, he got caught and he got charged with that, and he did a year in jail. During his year in jail, he wrote a song called Murder on My Mind. Same as the PB and Rock. I always forget that guy's name, but same thing. Went to jail, wrote his hit song while in jail. But anyway, similar to the P&B Rock story, he writes this song in jail, and his people are hearing it in the jail on his cell block. They're going, that's really good. Can you sing it for me again? Hey, sing that song for me again. So he already kind of knew, hey, this is really popular with everybody in the jail. I think I got a hit on my hands. So he gets out of prison about a year later, or out of jail, I think it was. And in March of 2017, Melly posts the song Murder on My Mind on SoundCloud, and it went berserko. Pretty much everything, all of the songs and videos and anything Melly posted at this time did crazy numbers, hundreds of millions of numbers. And it's worth mentioning, when they started the rap group, right, no one has any success. They're all just friends from the block. Let's start a rap group. At that time, it seems like YNW Sack Chaser was sort of the leader. He called himself the CEO of the group. And as time went on and Melly had this crazy success, you could see how Melly is going to start to think, all right, you're maybe the CEO and the leader when we first started the group way back when, but now I'm getting hundreds of millions of views every song I put out. No one, no offense, really cares about the songs you're putting out, so maybe you were the CEO at one time, but I feel like I should be moving into some sort of leadership role because I'm the one that's blowing up. So you could see, and again, that's very normal when young kids start a band and then there's success involved and there's money involved. All that stuff is very common. All right, so March 2017, after he gets out for shooting up the school like a lunatic, he posts the song Murder on My Mind on SoundCloud. So not even like an official album has come out yet, and the success really is mind-blowing. Melly says in interviews that just putting out the song and the lyrics of that song was a violation of his parole. When pressed on that, like, how does that even work? It should be artistic expression. How is that? He doesn't really have an answer, so just my sneaking suspicion, I would guess maybe the song Murder on My Mind wasn't the parole violation. Maybe there was a different parole violation, but Melly's a pretty smart promoter and marketer, and so he used that as, hey everybody, this song that I put out that everybody loves, Murder on My Mind, that was a violation of parole and I have to go back to jail because of that song. But that's okay because I did it for you. I put that song out for you guys and it's worth it for me. I'd rather give you my song, and even if I have to go to jail for my song. So that in the gangster rap world is like, oh my God, that's the coolest thing ever. So the song gets even bigger. The whole story gets bigger. Melly gets bigger as, you know, he went to jail just to give us this song. So the whole thing is even getting crazier, doing crazier numbers. Okay, so 9 months after that, he gets out again and he's pretty much a star. Doing sold out shows. He can put the mic into the audience. They can sing. They know all the words. He's pretty much a star without even putting out an album yet. He put that song out on Spotify, which is sort of like a demo. Hey, check this out. Very kind of low key, not even an official album yet, and he's already doing sold out shows. Everybody knows the lyrics, the whole thing. The whole thing is going crazy popular. All right. 6 months later, in August of 2018, Melly puts out his first album. So you got to think most people put out their first album, nothing even happens. They don't have any momentum. Maybe it takes a couple more albums to build the momentum. He's already pretty much a star. The first album drops. It has the song Murder on My Mind that everybody loves on it. 2 months after his first album drops was the fateful night where YNW Sack Chaser and YNW Juvie are murdered. They say it's a drive-by. We'll get to that. But 2 of the 4 in the group are murdered. 2 months after that, so 4 months since the first album, 2 months since half the group was brutally murdered, Melly posts a picture with Kanye. Kanye heard his music in Paris. Apparently someone named Psy showed Kanye Melly's song, and Kanye goes, I love it. I want to work with the kid. So he comes back to the States, gets in contact with Melly, flies Melly out to California, and he does a song with Kanye. It was actually Melly's song that he had kind of worked on. There was something there, and then Kanye worked on it with him. But to go from 6 months from putting out your album to being contacted from Kanye saying, I want to fly you out and work with you, a rap career could not start any better than this. Again, I can't stress it enough. Berserk numbers, 500 million, multiple 200 million. music videos, like truly crazy. Kanye's calling. And so the first album drops 2 months later. Friends are murdered. After that, working with Kanye, doing a bunch of interviews, totally crazy. And then 4 months after working with Kanye, he turns himself in. The authorities had made it very clear that he was the number one suspect and they were looking for him, and that they were going to arrest him. And so on February 13th, on February 13th, 2019, he turns himself in. The day before he turned himself in, he actually did a radio interview that's pretty interesting. If you want to listen to the radio interview that he did one day before he turned himself in and then was in jail for 4 years until this trial started 2 weeks ago, I'll link that in the description. Just kind of interesting, the timing of that interview, because he does a 25-minute interview and then the next day turns himself in and then 4 years in jail until the trial. Okay, so let's talk about the fateful night. They all leave the recording studio. There's 2 cars, 8 people, so 4 people in both cars. They get to the recording studio. They're at the recording studio until 3:19 in the morning. And just for the record, this is August. The fateful night where the 2 got killed is October 26th, 2018. So it's October 26th. They all go to the recording studio. They leave at 3:19 in the morning. There's a very clear security camera of all of them walking out to the cars. There's 1 red Mitsubishi. There's 1 gray Jeep. 4 people get into the red Mitsubishi. 4 people get into the gray Jeep. And you can easily see which seat each person gets in each car. Okay, so then the cars, they all live in the same kind of roommate, young, college type house, right? Everybody, they got a big 2-story house. Everybody's got a room. They all live together. They're all buddies. It's that period of their life. So the plan is it's 3:19 in the morning. Everybody's tired. Then they're going to drive back to the house and go to bed. Well, 40 minutes later, YNW Bortland shows up at the emergency room saying, there was a drive-by shooting and I think that you got to help my friends. They're in the car. So they rush from the emergency room out there and there's 2 people dead in the car. 1 in the front seat, 1 in the back seat. And it's YNW Sack Chaser. I'm just going to call him Sack Chaser from now on. And Juvie. So Juvie and Sack Chaser are dead in the car. And Bortland is talking about a drive-by shooting. Where was the drive-by shooting? He says it was on the highway. All right, so the investigation kicks off. We have 2 people that are dead. We have 1 guy that showed up frantically at the hospital saying that it was a drive-by. Well, the first thing you do in investigating as a drive-by is you go out to the spot. And the evidence of a drive-by is pretty much the same in all of them, especially if it's a car traveling and a car that drove up and shot at it. You're going to get skid marks. You're going to get glass on the road. You're going to get shell casings on the road. The windows were blown out, so it's definitely going to be glass on the road. So they go out there where Bortland, who had said, I was driving and there was a drive-by and my friends are dead and it's awful. So they go out to where he said the drive-by was, and there is 0 evidence of a drive-by shooting. There's no glass on the road. There's no tire marks. There's nothing. So then they say, all right, well, they left the recording studio. Let's see if there's security camera for that. There is. So they have security camera footage of everybody going to the cars and which car they went to. Hey, Melly got into that car, into that seat. All right, well, that's interesting. Let's get the cell phone data. The cell phone data shows that they left. 1 car goes to the house like they were saying to, but the other car goes to a desolate, dead-end road kind of in the middle of nowhere where no one else is. And there's phones, including Melly's phone, that go all the way out to that spot. Well, there is evidence of a shooting at that spot. There's glass on the road. Everything, there's one shell casing, there's everything that you would think of is that if there was a shooting where a car was shot a bunch of times, there's that evidence out on the desolate road. Not on the highway where Bortland said, there was a drive-by right there, I swear. Nothing on there, but out on the desolate dead-end road, there is the evidence that a car was shot up a bunch of times. Well, so they get the cell phone data, that puts Melly at the scene, and then after the phone that Melly's phone, which the prosecution did a pretty good job of going through text message after text message for days, pretty much saying, if this isn't Melly's phone, why is it Melly's phone? This is obviously the phone he uses to message anyone. Would he do these sort of private messages and then hand it around as the public loaner phone for all the boys? This is a successful rapper that has made maybe up to like $15 million in less than 2 years. Is he going to be sharing phones with anyone with all the messages, private messages, talking crap about people, things that you wouldn't want to be seen by other people? But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So the phone that Melly uses also travels out from cell phone tower data out to where the car actually was shot up, and then Melly, or allegedly Melly, is texting to get a ride home out from the desolate dead-end road, is dropping a pin location, hey, you gotta come pick me up. All right? Then the next big chunk of the investigation after the cell phone records, which I would say the cell phone records is the strongest part of the prosecution's case. It's Melly's phone that he uses. You can look at all the message. He definitely uses that phone. It goes all the way out to the spot where the shooting happened, and then he's trying to get a ride home, dropping a location pin, took a bunch of steps, took 1,000 steps all of a sudden, just like Alec Murdaugh did right afterwards. I think probably trying to get away from the scene to get a ride home. But then the next big chunk of the investigation is the forensic bullet analysis, which at this point, they got that science dialed in pretty good. And so I would say the second strongest part of the prosecution's case is after the forensic bullet analysis was done, the experts were able to do all of the angles of shots and everything, you know, how they do it. And they came to the conclusion that the shots came from inside the car. And then the shots that are on the outside of the car were just made to make it look like a drive-by. But the fatal shots were definitely inside the car, and the angles, the windows blown out from inside the car, and all of the shots that killed both men came from the seat that Melly got in, that you can see him get in from the security cameras of them leaving the recording studio. So they have Melly getting into that seat and into that car at 3:19 from the recording studio, and then they have cell phone tower data. The local law enforcement ran the cell phone tower data, and then the FBI at a certain point came in to help. They also ran the cell phone tower data, and both of the analysis were the exact same. They mirrored each other. So it wasn't like the data could be screwed up or it's a little bit inconclusive. It was very clear that Melly got into that car, into that seat in the car, and then the phone that he uses went out to the spot where the murders actually happened. And then there was a bunch of steps and messages after the shooting trying to get a ride. And so you put all three of those together, and it's pretty obvious why Melly all of a sudden was the prime suspect. He also didn't show up to the hospital. And then there was a little bit of where he was like playing both sides. He was saying, no, I wasn't there. I wasn't in the drive-by. But a documentary came out where he was like, yeah, we were all in a drive-by together, which could be him trying to use that again as promotion. But anyway, Bortland shows up at the hospital, 2 dead friends. He's saying there was a drive-by shooting. There is no evidence of a drive-by shooting. Melly is not there when Bortland shows up to the hospital, but all of the security camera evidence and then cell phone evidence puts him there, and all of the fatal shots come from the seat that he was sitting in. So Melly is the prime suspect. Everybody else, there was like 10 or 13 other suspects. Everybody's alibi checked out. They were at work, they were clocked in, but Melly was the one. You keep going down the line, all right? So the cell phone checks out. Okay, it came from the seat he was sitting in the car. It makes sense if the plan is, if Melly and Bortland, if the plan is, all right, we're going to kill these two. They're having problems within their little rap group. They're about to sell the YNW brand for a bunch of money. People are going to get hundreds of thousands of dollars. You could see the tension. All right, we got to kill them. We're going to take them out. So you wouldn't have the person that actually did the shooting show up to the hospital, because you're going to have a bunch of evidence from shooting the gun on your hand and maybe splattered on your face. So it would make sense, if you're planning to kill your best friends, the person that does the shooting then gets out of the car, gets a ride home, and the person that doesn't do the shooting, Bortland, shows up at the hospital going, my friends, my friends. Okay? So February 13th, Melly turns himself in, and it's been 4 years since then, up until the trial. So just to reiterate, I think the strongest parts of the prosecution's case are, you get to see Melly get into the car on very clear security camera footage. His cell phone data goes straight to the place where the shooting was, and then right after the shooting, he's taken a bunch of steps, needs a ride home from that spot, and then acts very peculiar after that. But it's not illegal to act peculiar, but the whole thing, it's looking very much like Melly did it. Now, so the prosecution for 2 weeks lays that whole thing out. They went through a lot of text messages where they're reading what Melly said and then what other person said. And I think the reason they did that is to show, this is Melly's phone. Come on, he doesn't share this phone. If he did share this phone, you would be able to tell that a bunch of other people shared this phone. One of the big messages that the prosecution says is a confession is after the drive-by. So think, everybody thinks Melly was in this drive-by and that his two best friends were murdered. So he's getting a lot of people reaching out to him. Someone says, are you okay? And Melly says, quote, I did that, with a smiley face. And under that, he says, shh. So the prosecution is saying he leaves the recording studio, he gets into the car where it happened, into the seat where the deadly shots came from, his cell phone that he uses. If you look at all the messages, no one else uses his cell phone. If you look at the cell phone, goes straight to where it happened, and then he needed a frantic ride home right afterwards. And then also, when asked, are you okay? He said, I did that. Shh. So that's the prosecution's case. The defense, the biggest thing the defense had to do while the prosecution was delivering their case was try to muddy up the cell phone data, because that dang cell phone data does not look good. Straight out to the spot, and then a frantic ride home where he's dropping a location and taking 1,200 steps very quickly out in the middle of a desolate dead-end road that you would never go to. So the way the defense has to muddy up that, and I don't think they did that great of a job, is asking the experts, so it's not really that precise, right? Cell phone tower data, it's good within a couple miles. And the expert's like, no, couple meters, not miles. And so, all right, well, it's not precise. When it's accurate, it's not precise. And when it's precise, it's not accurate. And the defense lawyers had sayings like that tried to make the cell phone data look, it's all just a bunch of bull if you think about it. But I don't think they did a really good job. And I don't think they thought they did a really good job either, because not only were they trying to muddle, all that cell phone data is not even really accurate, but also it's not even really his phone. They all shared the phones. To say that it was his phone is not accurate. Everybody was using that phone. Who knows? And not only were they saying that, but they're saying not only was it a public phone, but also Melly lost it. He also lost his phone. And so at that point, they're not even really doing all that good. They're just desperately trying to get the jury to not think about that cell phone data sort of proves it. Wait, he went to the exact spot. So the defense is desperately trying to demean the cell phone data evidence and that he lost it and then it's not his and it's not accurate and it's not precise, etc. Okay. And the second way that they really tried to bring down the prosecution's case is by saying the investigation was a total shit show. It was a terrible investigation. There's 10 suspects that they could have looked at, but they picked Melly because he's a young, successful rapper, and they knew that it would be a big, massive trial, and that if you prosecute a star, then you become a star. So that was their main. It's like they should have looked at any of these 10 suspects before Melly, or at least as much as Melly, but they had their guy. They wanted a big spectacle trial where there's a celebrity involved, and that's why they went with Melly. And the last witness that the prosecution called was the lead detective in the case. And so if your big strategy and hypothesis as the defense is that the whole investigation was they blew it, this whole thing should be thrown out, it was a terrible investigation, well, now the detective that did that investigation that you've been saying has been so terrible this whole time is up on the stand. So it was very interesting. All of a sudden, the defense got to try to, through cross-examination, prove that this investigation was no good and should be totally thrown out. And I don't think they really succeeded on that because the defense lawyer was big and he was loud and he was trying so hard to make it sound and look like this has just been a total shit show of an investigation, but it really wasn't. It may have started off a little rocky, but they did put a decent investigation together, and that showed. The lead detective's up there doing cross-examination, and the defense attorney is trying with all of his might, being like, well, did you look into them? And the defense attorney's going, yeah, we issued a search warrant on all of their data, and we looked into their alibi, and it checked out. And the defense attorney's going, oh, well, still, you wanted to charge a famous person. Well, what about them? Did you look at them? Yes, they were at work, and we looked into it, and they were clocked in at work. Oh, so the defense attorney was really trying to get the lead detective to look like an idiot, but he didn't. And that was the last witness in the prosecution's case. And then they rest. Your Honor, we have no more witnesses. The prosecution rests. Okay, well now it's the defense's case. And like I said earlier, they called just the one witness, the one friend who got up there and said, we did leave the recording studio. I was in the other car, not the Jeep where everything happened, the shooting. I was in the red Mitsubishi. It's 3:20 in the morning. Everybody's tired. We all fall asleep inside of the car. I remember kind of waking up a little bit, and we're pulled over, and Melly is getting into our car. I didn't think too much of it because I was so tired. And then he testifies that now that Melly's in the red Mitsubishi, they pulled over for a little pit stop. Hey, we're all going to the same house, but you know what? Melly wants to be in this car. There's no text messages. Hey, Melly wants to switch cars. There's nothing like that. They just knew instincts. Wait, pull over. Melly wants to get in this car. So he's saying he's sleeping, but Melly's getting in this car. And then they went back to the house. He testified that he saw Melly get out of the car, go into his room, go to bed. He went to bed too, the guy testifying, and they woke up early in the morning to hear the horrible news of their friends being murdered. And he also testified that they all share Melly's phone and it's everybody's phone, and also that Melly lost his phone. So essentially, after 2 weeks of, here's the security cameras of him getting in the car, all the bullet forensic evidence, the shots came from that seat within the car. The cell phone data goes straight to the dead-end desolate road, and then he needed a ride home. All of that, all of a sudden, goes out the window because he says, no, Melly switched cars. I was half asleep, but I did wake up kind of having to scoot over for Melly to get in. And it doesn't really matter what that phone says because it's everybody's phone. And also, Melly lost the phone. I remember that Melly lost the phone. So just one witness, and the defense attorney that called the one witness is going, so you are 100% sure Melly switched cars? Yes. You're 100% sure that he lost his phone? Yes. Your Honor, no further questions. The defense rests. So now, where we are in this case, once it's handed over to the jury, it all comes down to whether they believe that witness. If you believe that witness who got up on the stand and testified, I'm an alibi. He got into the car with me. We went home. I saw him go to bed, and he was talking about losing his phone. So if they believe that, Melly will be found not guilty. But if they don't believe the friend, then there's all the other evidence. So that's what makes this one very interesting. I can't remember a case like this where at the very final hour, one witness gets up and says the complete opposite of all of the other evidence. Again, the phone is really, I think, the strongest part of the prosecution's case. So the fact that he's testifying he lost the phone was everybody's anyway. He went home and he went to bed. And so if the jury believes the witness, he'll probably get off. And if not, it's probably going to go the other way. But very interesting stuff. Like I said, closing arguments are tomorrow. The jury should get it tomorrow evening. And then we'll get to see how the whole thing plays out. I'm going to cut it off there. I love you all. Why? Steven, why? Shah me.